And I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. The chair notes there's a quorum present. The flag is in the back corner there. Let's do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, 2.0 is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
I didn't have anything to do.
This can go with the Shutler station. One right after that, there's an interesting one, shorter than these two.
Okay, good. Okay. We'll just add a short-term lease. Okay, any other additions or revisions?
I don't have any.
If not, we'll go into 3.0, correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. For those who are dialing in, it's *6 to unmute yourself. If you came into us through Zoom on your computer, the mute is in the lower left-hand corner. And then I always remind folks that we are very informal. So as we move through the agenda, if you have questions or want to provide input to the court, we welcome that. For now, is there any public comment? Not, we will move into correspondence. There is an operational grant program final report from South Gilliam County Health District. Again, we'll probably get quite a few of these in the coming couple of weeks. So there's also a special projects grant program final report from the Arlington Saddle Club. Let's see what else is in here. Just those two. So for folks who are interested, these are part of our competitive grant programs and the accountability that we have in place. So if folks want to see how these funds were expended, the grant reports are part of the court packet on the website. So you're more than welcome to take a look at where all of our fundees spent the money and how those investments are playing out in your community. Okay, let's move on to consent agenda.
You're good? I'm not sure about that. I moved to approve the consent agenda.
She's sassy
I
today.
don't know that I'll second.
You would be happy to go. Would you?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of May 4th, 2022 regular meeting minutes, authorize county judge to finalize and execute fiscal year 2022-2023 operational support and spring capital investment grant agreements as approved by the Gilliam County Budget Committee, consider approval of proclamation declaring emergency medical services week, May 15th through the 21st, 2022, and consider approval of updated position description for road equipment operator 1. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move into new business. John.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to talk about cyber coverage. Super exciting.
So I was before the court a year or two ago when we talked about this. It's a rolling threat for public entities. And the court decided to increase their limits from the 50,000 that's built into your CIS policy package, which is an additional 950,000 for a total of $1 million at a pretty reasonable price. That is no longer an option. What's going on in the world? I'm sure you've seen it on the news. Everybody has redone their cyber insurance, and it's very difficult to obtain coverage. So we're faced with now is that 50,000 that's built into the policy is still there, but it's no longer built in. It's an additional $650 for that tier. You don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops. Is it enough coverage? I'll have to let you guys decide. Now, there's been several hits against County, Wheeler County, Tillamook County was a big one. It does happen. So then there's another tier, which is 200,000 plus your 50,000 for 250,000. With that, you have to independently hire an assessor that comes in and assesses your cyber threat from the county. You're out of pocket $500 to do that. It's a discovery process. They go through and see if you meet the qualifications, which I've sent to the county. So there's a whole list of obligations that you have to meet for them to even sell you an additional $200,000 in cybersecurity. And forgive me, I don't speak tech very well. I can barely use a computer myself. But it sounds like Elizabeth has reached out to your IT department and Ben or wherever they are, and you're close to meeting those, it sounds like. Some of the things, though, I know our company has implemented some of the stuff, the dual authentication things where anytime certain things are updated, you have to then log into your email and then a code is sent to your cell phone where you have an app and you take that code and plug it back into your email and then so there would be some learning curves, I would assume. Now there's tier 3, which is getting up into the coverage that you currently have until July 1st. They can't even find coverage for that. They can't even find Lloyd's of London to provide such coverage. So right now, as of last week when I talked to CIS, the max you can buy is the 200,000. They're not offering at this time the limits that you currently have because they can't find anybody to back them. And in fact, the 200,000 you're buying is built into the pool, as they can't find anybody to provide reinsurance for that program. So it's self-funded 200,000. Now that premium, I don't know because they're tying it to this assessment, but I'm assuming it's going to be, at least a few $1,000s to purchase that 200,000.
Would be how much?
At least a few $1,000s a year to purchase the 200,000 would be my best guess.
The 200,000 is not going to warm up the problem.
Much.
So that's the decision that's before the court is you can go ahead and purchase the 50,000. I recommend that. Whether or not you guys want to go forward and purchase more coverage and jump through those hoops. I don't know, I did that to you, but
What do you think, guys?
it's a whole new world as far as this.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not worth it.
Well, that's what the thing is if we had an incident, I'm assuming it probably would cost us more than what the insurance level is.
Yeah, they don't give specifics on those other claims, but I can tell you that several of them are over the 50,000, well over.
So it's really just what kind of risks
Do you want to be self-insured?
do you want to assume for that? I mean, there's nothing that says, even if we didn't purchase, there's nothing that says that we shouldn't say to AgTech, here are the best practices that CIS has identified, and let's go ahead and spend the money to make sure that we're doing everything we can just from the tech side to be smart about keeping people out of our systems. But it's just how much you want to assume, how much risk do you feel comfortable assuming?
My crystal ball would say that as this progresses, you're going to be forced into doing most of the stuff down the road anyway to even obtain the 50,000 or 100,000. Should they find those things next year, you're going to have to meet these standards. I see that. As thing, we see it in special districts, SDAO. Everybody's rolling out these programs, and I would assume that with what's going on in the world, they're only going to get tighter.
I would say 50,000, probably.
What's the 50,000 gonna buy us?
For $650 gets you the $50,000 in cyber liability coverage.
So if something
It
happens,
doesn't-
the first 50 is covered.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
get you the 200 gets you the, explain that again.
So you'll be able to purchase an additional $200,000 in coverage if you pass this discovery thing that you have to pay for. So you pay $500 for this discovery assessment where a third party is going to come in, basically audit your infrastructure, your cyber threat, basically. And if you pass that, meet the standards that they offer, then you can purchase that $200,000 in coverage.
Is that $500 a deal?
What's that?
Is the $500 a deal, or can you get that on the side?
I think it probably has
You're
to
out
be certified.
$500 no matter what. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
pass or fail that assessment, that $500 goes to that third
And
party.
they're gonna.
So you pass, then you're,
Assess it. They're gonna
Then
tell
What's it
you,
cost you to get somebody to assess it?
they're gonna tell you who you're gonna have assess it.
Yeah. It's
and then if you
It's
pass,
their-
then you have the option to purchase an additional 200,000 coverage.
How often are you reassessed?
I would assume that you pass, and again, I assume because it changes from one time, that as long as you're meeting those standards, that you would be good to go.
It's not something you have to pay $500 every year for that.
No, I would
Okay,
not,
you can
I
buy
would
a
not
product
think at
here.
all that you would have to do this every year.
Depending on how clever the cyber attackers become.
They may,
They're very clever
Yes,
from
they
what I can
are.
see.
they may require in the future additional items to that, but as far as
Probably
go
wouldn't
through this
cost.
discovery assessment again, I don't see that that's,
We got you.
For lunch.
it's hard, and then, you know, I've got smaller entities that are totally opting out of this altogether, just because an additional $650 for a city of 200 people is not an option.
Yeah, I mean, for us, what I would say is, we are in a position that if a big incident happened, obviously we have resources that we could go to try to fix it. The question is just, do you want CIS to pick up the first $250,000 of that? Or
About $2,000 approximately.
for a couple of
Somewhere,
$1,000 investment upfront from us to,
Well, I don't think we have a choice. And we do get, and we're forced into the assessment, so we know if we have things we need to do that,
Right.
correct.
Which isn't a bad thing.
which is not
Which,
bad.
you know what you're looking for, because we've given you that up front.
Mhm.
And so they've already, Liz has run it past IT and they responded back and said, yeah, we're pretty much there. So I don't think that they're gonna find anything above and beyond, you know, what.
There was one or two things that they said we're not in compliance with, but that they could have us in compliance by July 1. It would cost some money to have them do that, but we probably want to do that anyway.
Right, yeah.
Because we're protecting tax systems
Yes.
and payroll systems and all kinds of things that we really don't want to be compromised. So,
And then it looks like there's some additional trainings that we as staff would do based off of their requirements here, but that can all be easily done. CIS provides it, so.
which we probably need.
I was gonna say, which is a good thing
We
anyway,
need
right?
folks being smart about how they're using their
Yes.
electronics, so. So
So what kind of decision do we need to make today? A consensus or?
I
and
don't know
then
that
Find
we
out what,
actually need a motion. If the consensus is that you would like us to go forward, the amount that we're spending, the $500 is way below the procurement.
right?
But the bigger amount, I wanted to make sure that we're on board with trying to at least go through the steps to see if we would qualify for the 200,000. And then the insurance premiums themselves are wrapped up into the budget process. So that piece, I think we would do we have you come back in June? Is that how
I'm
we
gonna
do
probably
it?
be back at the second meeting of the month in June with the actual numbers from CIS for everything.
For what everything's gonna cost. So we would then approve actually doing that
At
once
that
John
point.
comes back. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is to even be able to know whether we qualify
Right.
and to sort of start this process. Plus, we would need ACTEC to get this last piece in place that they see that we're lacking right now. So,
Okay.
Yes, we need to do it.
okay. So it sounds like the consensus of the court for the minutes is to move forward with getting things in line for the assessment for our cybersecurity coverage and to move forward with paying that $500 and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And then we'll look at the overall where we are when John comes and sees us in the second meeting in June.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right,
It's a
that's all I
plan.
needed. Thanks for driving down, John.
Yeah.
Nice other meetings, if you'll forgive me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
More good
Okay.
news to go around.
Okay, item 5.2 is consider approval of modification to Condon Education Foundation fiscal year 2021-2022 special projects grant agreement. Delaney, do you want me to explain what's going on or do you want to tell the court?
I can talk about it. So I was contacted by Cindy Osterlin. She's in charge of this particular aspect for the library and the Condon Education Foundation. Due to COVID, they had to move their Missoula Children's Theater event from happening in the current fiscal year to pushing it out to August. So she's just asking that we allow their grant agreement to go through the end of August to allow that event to happen.
Makes sense.
Pretty straightforward. And then if the court approves it, we just send them a new grant agreement with the new deadline for expending the funds.
I move to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 special project grants award to Condon Education Foundation by extending the grant period to August 31st, 2022, and authorize the county judge to prepare and execute an amended grant agreement reflecting the same.
And I will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the fiscal year 2022 or 2021-2022 special projects grant award to the Condon Education Foundation by extending the grant period to August 31st, 2022, and to authorize the county judge to prepare and execute an amended grant agreement reflecting the same. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 5.3 is consider approval of compensation rates for interns and fill-in employees. So as some background, from time to time, we have fill-in employees that are used to maintain continuity of service when, say, the assessor's office is off to their conference for the year. They sometimes will have somebody in there just answering phones and then can help kind of fill the initial public responses. The clerk's office has some requirements by state law to be open certain hours. So if Ellen and Dawn need to be away for something, if somebody's sick, we just have some fill-in employees that basically are answering phones and just keeping things kind of going. And for years and years, that rate has been set at $12.50, which has been above minimum wage. However, minimum wage is going up July 1 to $12.50. And so Ellen asked if the court would like to look at moving that fill-in rate up to kind of incentivize our fill-in employees to continue making themselves available.
And how big is our pool of fill-in employees? With one or two or three or?
It depends. I mean, I think we've got, just looking at who normally is in the building from time to time, there's probably maybe 3-4 that regularly do that. Sometimes they're former employees
Right.
that are retired that have a familiarity with that office. Yeah, so Sherry's on board. So folks also in the public are interested in that. You can always reach out to the county court to express your interest, because we definitely have that need from time to time. It's nothing regularly scheduled. It's just here and there. Or if we have, say, a staff member that's out for a longer period of time, sometimes we'll bring somebody in to kind of fill in. And so the recommendation for the court to consider is increasing that fill-in rate to the recommendation in here is $13.50, so about $1 over minimum wage. But obviously we leave that open to what you guys think is best. And then the other rate that I just wanted to get a confirmation from is for our interns. So we have at the library and also within the courthouse, we occasionally offer internships for students. Sometimes it's during the summer, and sometimes we've got students that have an hour here or there as part of their work experience. And so we have historically paid them for that time. And so I needed some confirmation that we want to keep that at minimum wage, which will be $12.50 starting July 1.
So they historically have been at minimum wage, which works the same
Correct.
with the work experience program.
Correct. Yeah. The work experience program is at minimum wage. And so the recommendation would be to keep our intern rate at minimum wage so that we are not
Paying over what?
paying over what the other youth that we support in county work experience programs.
And then if we have a temporary employee would come in at the base rate of the position.
Right. So as an example, for like our transportation dispatcher is probably the most recent example. When Shania was out for maternity leave, we had a 6-month temporary employee. And so, yeah, we just start them at the base rate of that actual pay scale for the position. Because the expectation for the longer term ones, several months, is that they're actually going to be trained
Right.
and be able to do the job
Yes.
just as a shorter, whereas these fill-in folks really are like,
Answering phone.
exactly, if the sheriff's office is out, Sue Malgren will come in and answer the phones for part of a day kind of thing, just so that there's someone
there.
physically there. But it's not the technical side that we expect for our temporary folks.
Right. Okay.
Questions, thoughts about the fill-in rate?
No, good luck at $13.50 getting somebody.
Yeah, but we already have people.
I get that. I get
Yeah,
that.
and they're mostly retired folks
Yeah.
who just, I think, enjoy having some time, interacting with the public and people
Yeah, we're
working
not
at the
trying to hire
courthouse.
someone in. So that was my concern, was thinking. At first, when I read this, my thinking was it's a temporary employee and that's not enough, but this is just such a short time.
Yeah,
period thing.
we're literally talking about a couple of days a year,
Right.
probably for each office
Right.
that uses a temp or a fill-in.
Fill in, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a whole different thing.
Okay.
Okay, so I moved to set the hourly compensation rate for interns at $12.50 and the hourly compensation rate for fill-in employees at $13.50, effective July 1st, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we set the hourly compensation rate for interns at $12.50 and the hourly compensation rate for fill-in employees at $13.50, effective July 1st, 2022. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, get Ellen, let's, for this one, Delaney, get Ellen a letter that's just memorializing that. So she's got something in her file. Next up is discuss the ROCKit opportunity and project. So I mentioned this, I think, during our last meeting and also during some of our budget meetings. We were approached by a nonprofit who received a grant from a private donor in Oregon. And basically their charge is to bring this ROCKit, which is Resource Organizer for Communities kit, to counties to help them solve a community problem. And the framework, and this is specifically how it works, ROCKit communities participate in a 90-day process that develops a roadmap for asset mapping and community engagement. They create an asset map and capacity inventory to help ROCKit implementers identify community resources. They commit to specific actionable items and to measuring ongoing process. And they receive hands-on help selecting focus areas such as facilitating and implementing, as well as facilitating and implementing the process. So the facilitator here is X4 Health, which is, they've, I think, got, they're kind of a remote company, but I think they've got some staff here in Oregon. Umatilla, Morrow, and Tillamook counties went first and have already completed projects. Umatilla County took on a mental health project. Morrow County, it did workforce housing. Tillamook County did homelessness sheltering. And I understand now that Morrow and Umatilla are doing a second project that's joint. That is combining, I think, some of their mental health and housing into one project. That is, I think, they're currently working through that process. So I had a first call with the founder of this X4 Health back on May 5th to just learn more about it and talk about potential projects. Based on my discussion with her, my recommendation to this board would be that we maybe, one, definitely say yes to the opportunity, totally free,
Right.
to us. And two, that maybe we use this as an opportunity to talk about childcare.
Yes.
To bring together not just our typical folks around the table. The framework is really designed to bring in voices who normally would not be sitting at the same table, to talk about different assets that they can bring to solving a common challenge. So for instance, we typically would not have employers at the table talking about childcare,
Right.
which obviously at this point is causing folks to not have workers that they need.
Yes.
So kind of rethinking like who should be at that table. And so my thought for today is really just to get your feedback on one, do you want us to say yes and bring ROCKit here? And two, is childcare the right project?
Did you say typically you would not bring employers in, but in this case, you might be good?
Well, historically, when we've talked about childcare, we've only ever talked about it with the childcare providers.
Right.
We've never said to waste management, all those folks to like, hey, let's all sit around the table and figure this out together.
And the parents
would
that
do
are
that
using
through this process.
Exactly.
And the parents that are struggling.
Well, I've heard some concerns about some childcare issues recently, and I think that's where we want to go.
Yeah, I think so too.
We have a huge problem.
Yes, we do.
So in terms of time frame, they need to expend their grant by the end of the year, which is great for us because we can actually really jump on this. And so the time frame we were looking at is that I think Delaney and I would work directly with this group to do sort of the preliminary, like here's who needs the invites, here's the background of who the players are here, all that kind of stuff. With meetings, it's really what I understand is 3 community meetings that actually will take place over this 90 days. And it sounds like the first one would be mid-July, which I think will work well because our new superintendents will be coming in. And so hopefully they will already be in place and be able to participate from the beginning. And the thing that I really like about this as well is I think the second meeting, people are committing to what they can do. And then the third meeting is 60 days later, that it's an actual check-in. Did you do what you said you were going to do in the first 60 days? So I'm hoping what that will help people not only come up with a plan, but also take immediate steps to implement it. So it's not going to just sit on the shelf someplace.
We can talk about it all we want if we don't do something, making no progress.
Exactly. And the time frame that I really like about that is my hope is then by the new school year, we actually have some actionable things that people are bringing to the table to try to help solve some of the initial issues that we're seeing. So, so if I don't actually need a vote, I just need consensus, and it sounds like the consensus is do it, and
Yes.
childcare sounds good.
Yes.
Okay. We'll get in touch with them and we'll get you guys invited to the meetings as well. And then for folks who are in the community who have an interest in this or are actively working in this space, we'll be reaching out to you, but definitely reach out to us if you want to be included and know sort of what the schedule looks like for meetings and be part of the process. Okay. Next one, 5.5. Discuss request for a long-term lease at Shutler Station. Okay, so we were approached by Zayo regarding a they would like us to consider a long-term lease at Shutler Station for about an acre of property. And it's primarily, one, they have fiber running through there. And so part of that, I think, is access to their own fiber. But the other piece of that is they are working with Starlink. And I don't know how all the technical stuff works, but I think they're looking for a place to put a receiver for some of the Starlink internet access.
For everyone's benefit, can you tell us some more about Zayo and what they do and where they're from and
So
background on Zayo
they might actually,
beyond?
is the 303 number, is that Zayo?
Yeah, my name is Patrick Fayro, and I'm one of the Zayo reps.
Do you want to just give the commissioners like a high level what Zayo is and does?
Sure. Yeah, so Zayo Group is a telecommunications and fiber optic company based in Denver. We build and maintain fiber optic networks all over the country. And with that, there's obviously the buried fiber, and then our facilities that, relay and transmit that data. We have what we call an inline amplifier, or an ILA, just on the southern corner. It's actually across Cedar Springs Lane from the property owned by the county. But that facility there on the south end is one of our kind of relay stations. And then in the partnership with Starlink, they look for, an area close by these ILAs and close to existing fiber where they, can put in a download site. It's basically a series of satellite receivers that, take a satellite signal for the Starlink internet service, and then that's connected, in a buried underground fiber network to the existing fiber, and then, off it goes. So this would be kind of an expansion of capabilities for that existing fiber line, and that's why we reached out. I think our permitting guys are based in Indiana, but they had identified that we were maybe going to have some issues with the zoning on some of the fee parcels right adjacent to the ILA. And I think that permitting rep said, well, I think this site that the county owns may work. It may be zoned appropriately. And so he kind of teed it up and said, hey, it might be worth just proposing to the county and see what they think. And so that's why we originally reached out.
Thank you.
And so what we're looking at would be a 30-year lease with 2 5-year renewal options. So truly a long-term lease.
Yeah.
You in your packet have a map of the area that they're looking at, which is basically just as close as we can get them to where Cedar Springs crosses the railroad tracks. I did reach out to Omega Morgan, since they have the short-term lease on the whole park right now. Eric had no objection if we wanted to modify that short-term lease to release this section from it. They were open to that. They want to be good partners, and if we have long-term leases to accommodate that. The one request that he did have, which I ran by Patrick, and I think will not be an issue at all, is just to make sure that the full length of that railway is accessible for if they're bringing in big components that they actually need the full space.
Get a crane in.
Yeah, exactly. So just making sure there's enough setback there from where the lease is to allow that access. The rent would start out at $750 per month, which is our base fee that we are currently charging for other folks as well for the first acre, with a 2.5% annual increase. And yeah, so basically what I am looking for today is is this something that you guys would like to entertain? And if so, we will have our legal beagles put all of this together and actually bring it back to the court for approval, but I didn't want to set the attorneys loose before I knew whether you guys were open to this and wanting to move forward.
Yeah, my initial concern was tying up a long-term lease. And what would that bring to the county in addition to $750 a month? That might cost us something else in that economic development down the road, but where this is located,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think it's not a real usable part of that.
Yeah, and I don't think Omega Morgan even goes down that far anyway to
Yeah.
use, but I mean, unless they were offloading, but as far as storing stuff, they haven't gotten to
I
that
think
point
this
either.
really affects any, and it does support internet in our community, which is important too.
Yeah. Well, and it's one more step in getting more of our industrial park.
Right. Yeah, and to Pat's point, a lot of our rural households in particular had switched to Starlink. And so if this is helping them maintain good capacity for our residents that are using that service, I think that's, our folks would probably say that's a good investment for us to do that. Okay, so is consensus that you would like me to move forward with Patrick and our legal counsel in getting a lease back for your approval?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Okay, so Patrick, I'll circle back with you and our legal counsel and get something actually down on paper.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Let's move on. How's the sound, guys, for your, we have a train coming by. Can you hear us or do we need to pause? Maybe Kelly. Kelly, can you hear us? Never mind. Train's
Yeah, I
back.
can hear you fine.
Just wanting to make sure. The comment on here, Pat, is that you need to move closer to the mic.
Or speak up.
But it always is. What changed?
Okay, so
Yeah.
Pat, you said you had a short-term lease inquiry at Shutler as well that you wanted to talk.
Yes, Sterling Williams, actually, Kevin Hagwood contacted me first, and then Daniel Briggs from Sterling Williams contacted me, and they're having a really difficult time with the electricians union and getting people here to work on the solar project. And a lot of it's around housing and what to do. And they think it would be helpful if they had a place where they could even just dry camp a group of trailers and bring in a truck to pump them and let them run off the generators. That would help their workforce on the solar project moving forward. And they're interested in the stuff on the east side of Shutler that had all those stories before. I did try to call Larry and haven't heard back from him,
Okay,
but I think they would be okay with, and it, you know, they're probably only talking 15 or 20 trailers at the most, it wouldn't take up the whole yard anyway, but it's short term to try to help the project move forward. And last week they had 40 electricians and needed 140.
Well, as far as what, I'm not sure, Omega Morgan, my understanding was that portion that they were using on the other side of the highway has already been used. And I'm not sure do they plan on bringing anything else in for that?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
Omega
think
Morgan's
so.
got the lease on
Yeah.
that too also, and they
Right.
must have leased it to Avangrid.
Yes, they
Or
said.
subject to Avangrid, and I'm thinking there's the projects they thought they were gonna be utilizing area cores haven't
Yeah.
hard for them.
Yeah.
In other areas because of the size of equipment and number of things. So I think they'd be good with it. But be helpful to the project and it'd definitely be helpful to the community. And I can tell you,
Yes.
we're not getting very good local spend off of the solar project in particular compared to the Montec one. Because we have no housing and they're in the freeway every night, the ones that are coming in. It's a steady
parade.
roll parade every night at 5 o'clock and they don't stop.
yeah, because I was gonna say, like, Burns Park is totally empty right now, so I don't think they're looking, I mean, maybe here would be different because
There's
it's right
something
next to
about
it.
the union, I didn't ask any details, that they're right on the borderline of even getting them here with this project, and maybe going south puts the union out of, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
To get into another territory.
They get in another territory. I don't know the union rules on that type of stuff, but they're struggling to start with because they are on the borderline of the union.
Interesting.
And there's, you know, there's other things. Electricians have the opportunity to go work in a data plant inside or go out here and stand in the rain and try to hook up solar panels. So
So
they've
you're
got a lot
talking
of-
about our weather's been great. this
Yeah, right
last
now, the
spring.
110 later.
yeah, they've got some obstacles other than just housing and stuff, but if we could even fix a little bit of the housing, I think it would help the businesses and help them. And I said, don't think that the property is being used, doesn't look like there's anything in the future, so.
So the one thing, I see Michelle Colby's on here. The one thing that we would probably just want to run by, I'm assuming since this is very temporary, that there wouldn't be any planning implications, but we just want to double check that. In terms of getting them connected, usually what we've done is just have them go through Eric, because the way that the existing lease works with Omega Morgan is Eric just sends me an email and says, we'd like to sublease, and we don't actually have to create a whole lease around it.
Right.
So that would probably be the simplest way to get that moving, is to see if we can connect
That's what I thought,
Sterling
too.
Williams directly with Eric.
Yeah.
And assuming they don't need the property for anything, he's been really receptive to trying to accommodate anybody's needs. So I think that may be the next step, and maybe when we get back to Condon, I'll just touch base with Michelle and make sure if there's any planning things that we need to do, that we address that as well, but.
I know there's been some discussion at Waste Management, and I don't know how all this is gonna work with some temporary, or not some temporary, but some, I don't know what to call them, work modules to sit out there to try to incentivize some of their employees. And I had a discussion with the mayor about maybe they could use the property they bought down there for that, but we haven't got the site. There's, I mean, this is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some structural problems that are now hindering our ability to do business here that we have to address. Housing, childcare, fiber, all of the things that we've been talking about today, actually. They're all coming to a head.
Yeah, we've talked long enough, we need to do
Well, and
something.
with all the economic development around renewable that's out there, it's just gonna become more of an issue as we go forward.
Okay, so in terms of next steps, Pat, you'll connect them with Eric, and I will just touch base with Michelle about any planning concerns that we need to look at. And I'll let you know if there's anything that comes up. But yeah, I mean, I think if we're able to do it and Omega Morgan doesn't have objections or need it, they think that'll help.
Right? Go for it.
Okay, let's move on to announcements and next meeting. The next regular meeting will be June 1st in Condon. And Sherry, what do you got going on?
Norcor has a budget meeting tomorrow at 9 and a regular meeting at 10. I will be in Eugene, but I will be connecting to that. Capco has a meeting on Friday. I will not be able to participate in that because I will not be available. Short term, that's about it.
How about you, Pat?
First question, we didn't have a health update this week, just had where we were.
We're just where we are.
I'll let you do that when you get here.
Yeah.
I think you might give us a quick review. That's okay.
Nothing's changed.
At North Central Public Health District meeting last week. Came out of that. Went to the risk map discovery FEMA meeting at the Memorial Hall last week, and that was interesting. interesting in a number of ways. One thing that did come up, we got to thinking through some of the possible risks in the county, and I got to think about L13 out at Waste Management and the landslide, because while it was under construction, and L13 was a interesting landfill because it was originally permitted to be a ground level cap, and they kept putting in modifications and increasing the tonnage till there's probably more waste above ground, the original ground level, than there is below. And I always wondered when I was out there, because it was a landfill that slid, a Kim Waste landfill that had a landslide in California during that whole period. I remember. Ooh, that's right there on the base.
Yeah.
And if there was ever, so I made sure we included that in the risk map.
Good one.
For any
Yeah.
FEMA help that might come out of that, so we can look at that too. But that's been interesting, and it's really brought up a lot of really good ideas. I think Arlington's been working on the side with it. I don't know, they haven't attended any of the meetings, but
Our planner, Kirk Flatland, is involved in the
I
FEMA.
spoke with him on his way back through town.
huh?
I spoke with him on his way back through town.
Yeah. So they're reaching out to everybody and looking at everything, and then, I can remember just interesting deal. I remember I must have been in high school. I know I was in high school, and they had a downspout that washed up the highway going to Wasco on like Wednesday, and Thursday I had to take my sister to the dentist and the Dalles. And at the same time, the next day we had to go through Arlington, so we couldn't go to Cottonwood. And we're going back up just below my coil and had it down out there and flooded and tore the pavement up right in front of me on the highway. And then when JD was in high school, I got lost a car in the flood on Rockbridge. So all those things are kind of coming up in the process that things, you don't think about. That, 40 years ago it happened, or 25 years ago it happened. So it's a pretty good exercise. And it's going to really address any floodplain issues, mainly primarily that and updated floodplain maps and stuff. So, and I met with I went to the port meeting. Korea had their meeting here last Friday. It was a really good meeting with people all around, a lot of other counties, and it was a good meeting. Good to have that, something like that come to Arlington and Gilliam County. And then we're in Morrow County last month, and here this month, and then we'll be in Prineville next month. So, port meeting was last week, and then I met with Alan Hickenbottom, who's the consultant on the resilience renewable projects. Catherine and I met with him last week and last Thursday at Condon, and he attended the meeting down here and did some updates. But the portal hadn't opened on their internet. It was really weird. They haven't opened the portal to get the application yet, but the deadline for closing hasn't changed.
Of course.
Oh,
That's how this
that's,
works.
that's handy.
But it is going to be a rolling application, so even if we don't make the June deadline, it's rolling month by month and will continue, and so it's not his feeling is it's way more important to do a really good job of putting the application in than trying to rush and get it in on the June 10th deadline. Which I think is a good
Absolutely. Yeah.
plan. And I think the city of Condon will come up with a project that will work. They're
Great.
really looking at something. Catherine really likes maybe doing something with the grade school.
I like that. Yeah. Great.
And we talked a little bit about tying EV to it too, because when you look at resilience, it really doesn't work in Arlington because you're dealing with I-84 traffic, which doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with it. And in Condon, why would you ever have an electric car that can get charged up? So you might have people that actually purchase an electric car and not leave Condon and have a place to charge it up. So yeah, there's some stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, EV is very important to us, for both ends of the county.
Yeah, I think we need it here for different reasons.
Yeah.
Really need it here for different
communities,
reasons.
yeah.
But
You'd be surprised how many people go through the job day.
well, I suppose,
route, though.
there's 265 to 300 mile.
Yeah. See,
I
Yeah.
can't get my mind around. When I bought the pheasant, there's 11,000 people in the feasibility study that drove by I-84. They've converted all of those to electric, and they're traveling 265 mile to 300 mile increments. So they're all traveling during the day and staying somewhere at night. Where are you going to charge up 11,000 cars? But yeah, it's a wild thought. But, you know, we gotta do what we gotta do to accommodate.
Right.
I know they're trying to set up stations every 50 miles on 84, and I sure wish we'd be one of them.
Yeah,
I have
that would
talked to
be
Jeff a little bit about pursuing that, because at one time, I think the company was interested in something on, and then and Bobby Christian had talked to me about it, and I never heard anything else about it. Who is it that puts those in, start with the V?
I don't know.
Can't remember either right now.
Sure.
Anyhow,
Sounds like you've been busy. Okay, so for me, let's see, we tomorrow have Frontier Regional 911 will be meeting. We'll be doing a budget hearing as well first. It's at 1:30, so anybody interested in that, there's also a Zoom link. Let's see, what else is happening? Frontier Telenet budget has at least moved through the budget committee for Frontier Telenet. The next meeting for that process will be on June 8th at 10 a.m. So that is moving forward. See if there's any other sort of public meetings that are coming up. I think those are the big ones. Yes, so public health is basically where we were last time. We are waiting for attorneys to turn around drafts of agreements is basically where we are. So all of the subcontract agreements are with our legal counsel, and I'm hoping we'll start getting drafts out of her later this week. So I'm hoping those will be on the June 1st agenda. That's what I've given her a target date as. And then we are still waiting for DOJ to turn around the agreements from the state. But I'm not as worried about those because I don't know how OHA can hold us to deadlines if their attorneys don't give us drafts.
Right.
So that'll be up to them once their attorneys turn around their drafts. Those will be pretty quick reviews on our end though, because the state really is not up for negotiating a lot of terms. So we just review and make sure that they have the right county name in it usually, and that's about it for the state. So those are coming. Delaney and I are tackling policies, so we'll see some more of those. We're going to try to do the administrative ones first. There's a whole list. There's like dozens of ones that are required, and so we may have to actually go back to OHA and ask if we really need all of these, because some of them don't seem applicable to how our public health is going to be arranged, since a lot of the money is just passing through us to our subcontractors. So we'll kind of sort through that, but it's moving. The environmental health guys, Umatilla County is working on figuring out the process for reissuing permits. And so what's probably going to happen is they will reissue for all of our folks who have already been licensed by NCPHD for the year. We will reissue licenses that have the Gilliam County logo and are signed by Gilliam County. And then I think we'll likely send out a letter with those licenses to all of the businesses and organizations that have those inspections, just letting them know that the service is now being provided by Umatilla County, and here's what they can expect. Here's who they need to call if they have questions, all those kinds of things. So we are starting to put together what that notification will look like with Umatilla County. And I think Holly and Daleen are just going through the checklists of what each program requires and trying to get all the trainings in place and access to all of the programs. So we're still on track to be able to take this over by July 1. I have not heard anything further from Shelley regarding COVID dollars.
it didn't come up in the board meeting.
It did come or
It
didn't?
not.
Yeah, I am not surprised.
I thought about bringing it up, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
I am still holding the NCPHD check from us for the last quarter payment. So I'm just holding that until we get an answer. So it's in a safe place in our office. Just waiting. So I'll keep you posted if I hear anything on that. Let me think of what else we are working on. We special project grant applications came in. They are going to be reviewed next week.
Yeah, Tuesday next week.
By the grant review committee. And so I would expect those to be on one of our June agendas to take a look at. We started out with having, I think, one application like a couple days before the deadline, and I was really worried.
Oh my.
But people have come through.
Yeah, I got
And-
several panic calls Friday afternoon. We can't get into the courthouse. We need to drop off our application. What do we do?
Oh, there.
Because I didn't know the courthouse doors lock at 4 on Friday, so that was, yeah, we fixed it though. Everybody got their
Yeah,
grants
right.
in, but yeah.
So some good projects in there that'll, I think, be interesting, and some exciting ones in there too. The other thing we did recently that I wanted to just flag for you is our broadband consultant is still out there. That project, because of our staff turnover, he had staff turnover at the same time. And so we did a reset and kickoff call, him and Delaney and I, last week to set a new timeline. And so you will be getting an amended contract that will come back just extending the timeline, but he has already started reactivating with
Rapid
partners.
communication.
This is comm structure. And so they are basically, just as for folks in the community who may not know what we're up to, we have a contractor who is basically giving us a high level, what would it take for our rural households to reach them with high-speed internet, whether that is fiber, wireless, or a combination of the two technologies. And Morrow County, interestingly enough, is doing that exact same process right now as well. So I think they're looking at a similar partnership with Columbia Basin that we've been talking about. So anyway, the idea is he will come back with some high level, here's what it would take. And then the court would then decide if they want to move on to phase 2, which is more detailed drawings for how to
Is
deploy
Starlink
this.
going to be considered in that and customers utilizing Starlink?
I think it will be part of the discussion when it gets to us.
I think it's a big impact on, it's a big impact on what we do going forward based on how well that's working,
Yeah,
how satisfied customers are with it, and the expense.
Yeah, and the cost.
yeah. Yeah, I think so far there are a lot of happy customers from what I can tell from the
Mhm.
feedback. But I also want to make sure that we don't, how to phrase this. When satellite internet first came on, we all thought it was great. And then everybody got on it because it was better than dial-up, right? And then everybody got on it, and then we didn't get the speeds that we wanted. And so I just want to make sure that we don't pass up all this federal infrastructure dollar that's coming out for broadband and end up with a product that over the long term, people end up being dissatisfied with. So it's probably going to be part of the mix for sure, because there's some households in the county that are just,
Is there feedback over weather affecting it or anything that you've heard at all? Or I haven't heard anything that's been really negative about it, but you would think cloud cover and some of those things that affect TVs at times, storms.
I mean, we have it and we have not experienced that at our house. So I'm not hearing, occasionally it'll go down, but it's like really temporary. Like you'll click something and it'll be off for like 15 seconds and then, but that's few and far between. So, but I don't know what it looks like long-term for them in terms of capacity, like if they're able to keep up with the demand. I understand their wait list is pretty significant. I'm not sure what it looks like once everybody's on their system, what that looks like. And the other
I
interesting,
heard it was going to get better.
the other interesting thing that I'm not sure how this plays into is space trash. Have you heard about like
A little
space
bit.
trash?
Oh, really?
Like, because we never come up with a way of taking our components out of space. Like if something hits and it shatters into pieces, like one of those little pieces can take out like an entire thing of satellites, which I think Starlink has experienced before already. So I'm also not sure like long-term what that looks like as more and more people are launching satellites. If we have a lot more outages just from things running into each other.
So the human race has totally polluted the earth and now we're doing it in the sky.
Yeah. It's the
Right
next
on.
frontier.
Right on.
Next frontier. Anyway, all of this to say, this is just to give us a general sense of what it would take to deploy either mostly fiber, some fiber, or mostly wireless, which is a similar framework to what Morrow County is looking at. And with the idea being positioning us to compete should the court decide it wants to move forward for those federal infrastructure dollars that are coming out for broadband. Let me see what else has been on.
Has any of that money, is it available yet, or is it, do we know?
It's, to my knowledge, the broadband stuff has not been released. But Business Oregon has reached out and reaches out about every 3 or 4 weeks to get a lay of like who's working on things. So I think they're keeping a list when the money comes out of projects that are ready to go. So Ryan DeGroft calls me every once in a while and says, where are you with your fiber? And I think that's the intent, is Business Oregon is trying to position counties that are ready to go to compete for the funds when they come out. So my perception has been that they're not out yet, because I haven't been hearing like, how are you applying? I've just been hearing, is your project ready? So
Everybody wants shovel ready.
exactly. So this is the first step in trying to move us towards something that would be shovel ready should we decide to continue down that path. Let me see what else. Those are the big things I think for now. We will have the Gilliam County's budget is going to be scheduled to come up.
I have something for that too that I forgot about. Is I got a text from Dewey. Oh, a couple days ago, he's doing some work on his budget, but the estimated state funding for Gilliam County Road Department was, I remember I was 1.9. They overestimated by 663,000.
Oh, good.
I don't know where that's taken us yet, but
Okay. Flag it for Nathan. We are able to do adjustments at the county court level, but we have limits on how much we can adjust.
he was seeing what he could do to adjust his budget and, you know, just so that part would work. But I'll talk to him today. I haven't followed up with him since I said if you talk to Nathan, and he says, I'm still looking at my budget, see where I can cut.
If I recall, it's something like 10% of the total appropriation for the budget.
Yeah, I think it's be over that.
So we have some wiggle room to fill that hole, but probably not the whole hole.
I wondered when I saw that number. That was the number they put on the sheet for Gilliam County.
One thing though that we could look at is, and I think I sent over to you, Pat, that there, some of the federal infrastructure dollars is specifically for rural roads. And so maybe that's a place to backfill and to do a fund swap with the state.
Yeah, I was gonna look at that email again. I had this, you referenced Cedar Springs with it.
Well, and it could be something else. Maybe it fills something else in instead, if that's.
'Cause I don't think Cedar Springs is gonna happen just based on contractors. I've got a couple emails out and I haven't got feedback yet, but it's gonna be hard to, it's to plan now for after the first year, is probably best for Cedar Springs, and then there's just a patch between now and then, but yeah, we may want to try to funnel it into this.
Yeah, we could set Jolie loose too and try to figure out what that money looks like and the timelines and all that kind of stuff. But there is some federal money for rural roads and bridges specifically. So maybe that could help. If he has a specific project he would need to cut out for that 600,000 difference, maybe you could just put that for a grant for that specific thing. Okay.
Talk to Jolie, because I think she's been looking into that.
Yeah, I was gonna talk to her, I said to her yesterday, yeah, that training.
Yeah.
Well, she's online, so I think she can hear us, and I'll touch base with her when I'm in the courthouse this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? If not, it is 11:04, and I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.